Greetings all. This is the July 12th meeting of the Coogan County Airport Board. And I just called the meeting to order. I'm going to proceed to a roll call, starting at the top. Steve Anderson here, Brett Boyer here, Brian Cleary here, Mike Hikoski here, Tim Combrick here, Chris Nordstrom here. Our alternates, Mike O'Connell, Frank. Yeah, sorry. That's not gonna and Joan Genscher here. Thank you. So having taken the roll, we have a quorum. I declare it's ready for business. And I will proceed to pledge of allegiance. I'll just lead us. Pledge of allegiance. To the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Introduction of visitors. We have visitors tonight. I need to introduce. On here, okay, no. Call for conflicts of interest. Does anybody have a conflict of interest to declare with respect to anything that is on our agenda or within our purview tonight? Hearing no conflicts. Move forward to changes to the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda? Okay, nobody has any changes to propose. Moving on. This is a consent order item. It's approving the minutes of our previous meeting on June 14th. I had listed this as a consent item, meaning we don't need to take a formal vote if nobody has objection to the minutes as stated from the June 14th meeting. Do I hear any objections to it that will cause me to move it on to the discussion part of the agenda? Hearing none, the minutes from June 14th regular board meeting are approved. That takes us to item 7 on the agenda, staff reports, updates. Do we have a report from our acting airport director, Phil Cummings, on airport activities? Phil?
Well, y'all get ready. I'm not gonna leave. I'd like to let everybody know that I will be done full-time as airport director on July 21st. Next Friday. The Board of County Commissioners has accepted my recommendation to promote Gaston Patterson to airport director on Monday the 23rd. I will, however, be staying here to be a pain in the backside on a limited basis as an airport advisor to Puerto Rico. So that being said, a couple of the things that we're working on, we want to move forward with our EA. We're going to have a discussion with the FAA on that pertaining to the land purchase north of the airport, and also to try and encourage initiate a tower study. As you know, we've had a tower here for about a week now, and I thought they came up here on vacation and found out this was not a place to go fishing because it's busier than they thought. In fact, their comment the third day was, "You guys should have had a tower a long time ago." We've been averaging, between 350 operations a day. And we're not even in the fire season yet, so it's been interesting for us. It's been nice having the tower. Right now, they started out 8 to 8. We cut them back 8 to 6 because there wasn't much going on. They're extending per day depending on fire activities, such as last night. They were asked to stay for a couple more hours to every block. But we've had good response from everybody. Anybody have any complaints about the tower?
Is this the Forest Service that's operating it right now?
It's a contract tower. It's not FAA. They're all ex-FAA air traffic controllers. But yes, it's being paid for by the Forest Service. It'll be run in 2-week segments unless the traffic warrants it to continue. But they're not gonna stop and start a day or 2 days. The setup is to run for 2 weeks at a time. They'll be running through the 1st of October unless they need to extend.
The feedback at the association meeting last night was all positive, Phil. And some of the accolades go to the airport staff, you and your staff for putting an elevated pad out there to where they can actually see the airplanes on the ground and over most of the airport. The other thing is the upgraded radios. I think we had something to do with that. And I guess they have iPads or some method of seeing the ADSB traffic at least now. So those things are all improvements over previous years and they're to the benefit of the airport staff and you.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, these guys are independent contractors. Like I say, they're all ex-FAA, but whoever their boss is that put the system together, the FAA should take a look at how they set stuff up because the radio system and everything is considerably better than an FAA tower. But thank you anyway. As far as the crew goes, I just told them to fix it and walked off. They did that on their own, so. But I appreciate the comments for the crew. Corey's gonna give us an update on the
Oh,
project.
that question,
Yeah.
you know, when people say tower, you often think of the classic tower. But you're saying they spoke around Forest Service, wasn't? And they said you should have a tower. Is it like the tower they're operating now? Is that what you're talking about?
Right, the guys that are running the contract tower, as I said, are all ex-FAA air traffic control. One guy's 30 years plus. And they can't believe that with the traffic mix we have, as many operations and as busy as we are, we don't already have a tower. So, given their background in the company, they're gonna write a letter for us. We're gonna send it to the FAA toward the middle of the month here with our air traffic control study that was done about a year ago. It's just about the right time to put them on notice. So it's you know, it's been very beneficial, but like I said, those guys thought they were gonna come up here and go fishing and see North Idaho. It's gonna be a vacation, and they have been quite busy since they got here.
Phelps Field is a control, contract tower too, so, and it works really well.
Right, yeah, it's a little different setup, but yes, contract tower.
And do we know the tower frequency?
Yes, we do. I don't have them off the top of my head.
120.125 per tower and 1270 per ground.
Is there any other component to the update from airport administration? What is it you do?
Corey's gonna give me an update on our projects.
Greetings.
Or to check with our Dura. Like you did last time, I would just go for the things that have changed. Over the course of the last month. We had an ongoing electrical improvement project that had stopped because we were waiting on a generator. The generator is still going to be lagging, but we're planning to start the project to get the vault building, the old vault building stuff moved to the new vault building, and all the vault building, all the airport controls will be on the north side. That project will start on the last day of July and end on the 18th of August, is what we're projecting. And so everything will be ready for the future generator when it actually is delivered. So I'll be able to just plug it in and do a little wiring to get it completed. Because it is still not complete, I guess. They are citing some sort of manufacturing and parts issues, Canadian American generator. The other things that have changed over the past month is the runway 624 and taxiway Bravo 4 project. The grant was signed by the FAA and the county. So that project is completely funded now, and the county is also entered into agreement with the prime contractor, Full Asphalt. So we should be set to go on that project for beginning in think it's August 21st is when they will start construction on that. The pavement maintenance project for taxiway November, the North Taxiway, the FAA provided a grant in mid-June for that one. And they also approved the construction safety and phasing plan. So we're currently working on getting a contract with the contractor. We wait until the grant is awarded to actually work on the contracts between the county and the contractor. And then taxiway Charlie, it's the upcoming, it would be FY 24 project. The scope of work was approved by the FAA, and so we're working on a fee, and then the airport is working on their side, doing an independent fee estimate of our services. And then we would start the design of that taxiway Charlie extension. And then the last thing that's changed. Oh, I think that's it.
Okay, any questions for discussion? Yep, thank you very much. That brings us to item 8 on the agenda for tonight, which is update from the Coeur d'Alene Airport Association being provided by Mr. Craviano.
Yeah, Harry Craviotto here with the Coeur d'Alene Airport Association. I have some updates. We had a very productive meeting last night, and from all that we got from inputs, this power was very, very, very beneficial to the Coeur d'Alene Airport. That was the comments that we got from our members, so that's a good deal there. We are part of the Coeur d'Alene Airport Association has formed a close relationship with the Coeur d'Alene Flyers, as they have more social media connections than Coeur d'Alene Airport Association does. So we're kind of working with them on that. Our next meeting will be at Coeur d'Alene Aviation and Maintenance on the 8th of August at their old resort hangar, and we'll have Kurt do a presentation on what he's been working on and how his operation will work. Let's see here. And then also we had jumping around here a little bit. We had Lieutenant Ellis from the Kootenai County Sheriff's Department Aviation Unit with a helicopter, and they've just been in operation for a few months now, and they came and they gave us a presentation on their helicopter operation, how it works, and that was a big help to understand how that whole system works. It's public use, and it's going to be for law enforcement, and so it's search and rescue and lost souls out there. Whatever we have.
Where's that helicopter based, Eric?
It's over at the
Aspen.
Aspen hangar right now, and they operate out of there.
Okay.
And they have a response time of about a half an hour. Depending on how fast they get the pilots up there. It's all volunteer pilots on that, so that, yeah, that's interesting, but and they didn't want to burden the taxpayers with any costs on that helicopter, so it's pretty much everything comes from, I guess, private donations, what I can tell. Let's see here, so we got that. Also, we are planning a barbecue for Gaspin and Phil on the 29th of July at the museum over here for their great work and their hard work and their change of directorship. So that's coming up. And let's see here. Hold on, I'll get into that. Okay, in our last meeting, we had myself and some of the board members brought up the subject of revising the rules and standards, and that's still a priority for us. And I didn't see it on the agenda today, so I don't know why or if it will come up here, but that was something, and then I think at least one board member in the airport and our aviation community at large should participate in that discussion regarding these revisions when they come up. And that's all I have. Thank you.
So would you like to be that one that participates?
Sure.
And I'll just let you know, the rules and standard thing is not been lost from the radar screen.
No,
It's
no,
on-
I understand that. I just thought I'd mention that.
It's embedded in there. So, thank you for the update.
What time's the barbecue, Eric?
The barbecue, oh,
From 11 to 1.
11-1, there we go. I thought I had it on.
And it's really not a barbecue, it's more of a hot dog.
It's a hot dog, yeah. Hot dog. Yeah.
It's not about the food. It's in what, Sunday the 29th?
The 29th, yeah.
Saturday.
Saturday.
Oh, you're right, Saturday.
Bill? Yeah.
Something I forgot to mention, we've been doing a lot of contact and research. Excuse me, with local FSDO, Helena, Seattle Regional FAA. And we haven't made any headway at all on the AWAS, that we run some pretty good dead ends. So Mike and I had a conversation about this last week. And he's gonna get me his contact person with the feds in DC. And we're gonna make contact with them to find out about this program, but getting rid of the AWAS or turning it over to the airport. Nobody else in the system knows anything about it, so we are still working on it.
So you've talked to some other folks in the region's offices and it's kind of like led to dead end, and so Mike's offered up to put you in contact with his DC guy. or
Yeah,
person.
and nobody in the FAA we've talked to is for the program, so Mike has a contact right in DC, so I just go to the horse mouth, find out what's going on. And we do it.
Thank you. We'll move to item 9 in the agenda. Is made business for the day. A while back, I had brought up some prior meeting, one of our first meetings about, we needed to make any adjustment to the airport guidelines in light of, we have alternates and, what is the mix of the quorum with alternates, so they count, or not. And so I had sought out some assistance from the county to let us know where we should be on those kinds of things. And I got an update from Jonathan. Thank you, Jonathan. Where BOCC was agreed to recommend the following additions into the guidelines, and I'll just read them out. Which is alternates may participate in meeting discussions, but shall not vote on agenda items unless appointed as a regular commission member. In terms of quorum, quorum shall be at least 4 voting members. And then as to subcommittees, the subcommittee shall be no more than 3 members, including alternates. I would move that the airport board in turn recommend back to the commissioners that we are in agreement with the proposed clarifications to the airport board guidelines, those being the ones I just read about alternates and quorum. You want me to read it out again as in the nature of the motion?
My understanding was that these were already adopted by the county commissioners, and I don't think they were looking for any.
Look at the feedback,
I don't know, we've got
the
commissioners.
way it was posed to me
Yeah,
was that this was something that they were in agreement with. And that they were, reading the language was, add this to the guidelines as an item for the next airport advisory board meeting. Which I interpreted as, if they wanted it as an item at the meeting, they were looking for some feedback from us. So,
maybe my misunderstanding. I thought it was already adopted, but. I didn't.
Jonathan, if I misinterpreted.
Chairman Duncan said, send it to the advisory board, you all to, look at, I think that's all, and then we'll take it back, we'll put it on a business meeting in the future, we'll sign and date it,
Okay,
make it all official.
that sounds like you're interpreting.
Is this the document you're referring to?
What are you looking at?
That's the.
Is that the,
No, this one has on.
This is the
Oh,
package.
excuse me.
Talking about an email exchange.
So there's, yeah, three little.
Yeah, I did include it.
That's the, I guess, old one you wanna say, and then we've been looking to add those to it and then make it a new.
Yeah, because this has a roll of alternates on, that's why I was asking this to go out and make it first.
What are you looking at?
Yes.
It's a report advisory board direction.
No, no,
Yeah,
so the guidelines are like the bylaws and they're included in the
So
package.
this is on the back
Yeah, I know.
of the information,
Right.
but I don't know that it's included in the resolution that I got previously approved. So I'm just asking, is this the addition to?
That's not.
That's not it. You're not, yeah, back up a page.
It's a series of email. Okay.
Yeah.
So the email was the addition, this,
Yeah, just.
this has no official.
I figured the screenshot or the PDF of the email suffice of what was talked about. So, we all-
I'll second the motion. BOCC can put the correct numbering or the appropriate location. Okay, discussion. Frank kind of jumped in, but any other discussion? Then call for vote, all in favor of the proposed changes from the BOCC. Say aye. Aye. Are there any no's? Okay, I think that measure. An action item passes on the agenda item 9D. 9D. So, I'd hope the next item is 9E on the agenda, which is agenda items for next meeting, and that's usually how we close out meetings, at least the way I structure things, but I also took it as the opportunity to have the discussion that Frank had suggested we had. And I brought up the last meeting about what other things should the airport board be, having within its sites to deal with here. And I included in the airport materials that circulated for this meeting, both, this Frank, you had this up a minute ago, which was the initial direction that we got from the Board of Commissioners when the new board was convened this year, right? Consistent with one pager. And then I also included, you recall, we went through kind of just a tedious exercise of trying to list things and put it in a table that might be, topics we want to take on at future meetings, and that's this one. Right? You remember that from the March meeting, right? Yeah. So I have extra copies of this, anyone's missing it. So in reference to this, one, here's the general direction we got from the airport, from the BOCC. From that, I created this table that we then kind of prioritized sort of by the March meeting. And so they flow one to the other. And of those things that are on the table that I put together for prioritization, I think we've actually nailed some of those and dealt with, right? Some things though, that I think might warrant some additional follow-up discussion would be like, do we have a complaints management system in place, or is that an issue that's with the passage of time, people have become more comfortable? I don't know. So maybe we should talk about some of these things on this list, and I would propose that we go through the table. And to the degree we've knocked one out, let's scratch it. And to the degree to which there's some lingerers that we need to take up, great, let's keep them on. And then if there's some others, let's add. Okay. So with that, this is kind of a discussion. And I would propose, let's just go to the things we think we've nailed out so far as a board. Maybe the issue hasn't gone away, somebody's working on it on the airport administration side. But we as an airport have given a recommendation on it. I think AWOS is one of them, but I don't know whether to take it off the list or not. Because I know that's kind of a sensitive issue and some people want it to continue on the list through time. So I don't know whether to take it off or keep it on.
Well, what would be discussed, Brian?
I don't know. I mean, we've made a
I
recommendation.
think everything that's been discussed and discussed, and that's over on the BOCC side, and Phil's working
Right.
with, so I think, and then Gaston will probably pick that up, so. I think we can take that one off the list.
Does anybody object to that? No. Okay, then, and I'm not really going in the order, I should start at the top there. Leasing application review process and criteria. what do people think in that regard? I mean, we've talked leasing, but mainly adjustment of leasing rates. We just had a recommendation on that, but we haven't really gotten into perhaps the guts of what this number one on the list is.
Well, I have a comment on that, in that we did touch on the fact that in the past, there was an unequal system in place where people who were on a waiting list got bumped off or moved in front of one another, so I think we discussed it to that degree. But, and then there is I think, Kim, did you put something together about that leasing procedure?
Had a conversation that with Steve Anderson actually put that flow chart together. And we haven't revisited it since then.
We made some recommendations for some additional transparency and some of it will hinge on the availability of funding and the availability of IT staff to make some changes that to the website that may allow us to see who's in the queue and what position they are and potentially even, what hangars are available and that type of thing. Those are things to be, I think the airport administration understands what we would like to have. Some of that is going to require county commissioner approval to assign and allocate resources to, but I'm not sure how much additional input that we have at this point in time. So I guess maybe I'm giving myself too much credit for crossing this off, but I would like to cross this off the list for us for right now.
I agree.
Are there any objections? There are no objections, so one comes off. 2, complaints management and resolution system. I think, Frank, do you have any thoughts on this? Like, one, I thought maybe you would. On whether we should keep it on the list or not.
I would say we should keep it on the list because we have not addressed it.
Okay.
I'm not sure how we should go about it. I know talking with Mike, we thought perhaps an ombudsman could be the best way to approach that. As kind of a neutral party for anyone from the airport that thinks they have a problem to initiate a complaint with the ombudsman. Then pursue it with airport administration and then resolve it and advise the county commissioners. I believe that's what Bruce was looking for, is just basically a process to do that. That would be one approach to it, but I think we need to keep it alive because we haven't been addressed yet.
So we'll keep that on the list. Does anybody object to the keeping that on the list? Okay, so we're keeping number 2 on the list. Communication with airport stakeholders was one, and I don't think we really directly addressed it, but Kim, I'm gonna offer up here. I know you recently got some training on like the airport website and some of the things that you can do. It's the ability to put updates on there and things like that. I don't want to overspeak. I'll let you speak to it, but maybe that's one way of better communication, but maybe there's others too. So how do people feel about leaving that on the list? Does anybody object to leaving it on the list?
I have one comment on that. I do know that out on the airport portion of the county website, they had some newsletters that had been published by the airport.
Yeah.
And I thought, I looked at that and I thought, well, that to me is a very effective way for them to communicate with stakeholders. And I think if, that were a regular process, I think that would serve to mitigate concerns around number 3.
That's
I'm not
certainly
sure.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure who was handling that or how it was done. Kim probably has more familiarity with that than I do. It seemed to me like a pretty good idea.
Can you weigh in with deep information about who does that? And it's periodic.
So what I know about it is that it was being handled by Stephen, and I don't believe anybody has picked that up since he left.
I'd like to make a comment.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think with the change of management, I think a lot of that communication issue has kind of gone by the wayside. I think the major problem in the past was that there was no communication. Kim just mentioned that it was not taken care of. And so now I think that one of the avenues for communication is the airport association. And the airport association is well represented in these meetings now. I think it's excellent how they changed the format to where we can hear from them during the meeting instead of at the very end. So I think a lot of that's is a non-issue right now.
I would agree. I would second what Mike's saying here. There's been a transformation in the availability of the airport staff with the stakeholders at the airport, and communications on a daily basis have been something that that I think we had hoped for, and I think we're getting that now. And the types of updates that we're getting in these meetings now, they seem to be a vast improvement in communications, and so I don't know. I mean, I think it would be nice to have an airport newsletter, just, you know, to update in general, not just the people that are here in the room or behind the table, but the community would probably benefit from, if they go to the website, if there's any interest at all in what's going on out here. I think those types of things, I mean, just by looking at the crowd that showed up for the F-35s here, I think we were all blown away by how many people in the community will turn out when there's something worth turning out. So, so I think to the extent that someone in administration could pick up and provide more, you know, kind of monthly newsy, general information about what's going on out here would be appreciated.
I have something to add to that. Wouldn't it be easier just to put a link on the airport website going to the airport association? Because there's plenty of information.
That could work too, but there may be some things that,
Yeah.
that these guys are aware of that we're not necessarily. Anyway, but I think in addition, maybe that.
Can that be done legally? Can there be a link going? I mean, you have links going elsewhere.
Hey, I'll ask.
Is it presently there? Is there presently a link to the?
Yeah, I think there is.
There is, yes.
Okay.
It goes to the old
Oh.
airport association website, and again, it hasn't been updated in
It's
quite a
been-
while, but
it's
yes.
been-
There's
Okay.
links.
And
section.
building on what Harry said, the Coeur d'Alene Flyers has a Facebook presence that is far beyond what the association has. And we agreed last night that would be kind of like a primary social media link for us. So the Coeur d'Alene Flyers would be another one that would be good. And it's shown as Coeur d'Alene Flyers, Coeur d'Alene Airport Association /
Frank, I can offer a comment, one benefit to having a newsletter such as what was being done on the county website is there's a lot of nuts and bolts matter that perhaps the Airport Association would cover, upcoming projects, runway closures, things like that. Personnel matters that maybe people need to be aware of, just things that go with Gaston's managing the airports, and you might want to have a separate communication device to say, just to let everybody know this is going on. I mean, very short term, very short, I wouldn't make it more than a page, I would put a lot of time into it. But just enough so that people are, source for current events as to what's happening with your end of the world, not necessarily what we're doing, but, here's what's going on at your airport from county point of view, from an operational point of view. I don't think you can have too much communication, especially considering issues that we've had in the past, past management. So I think something like that will serve the purpose of, if you run into people out in the airport, for example, that don't know what's going on, you can say, on the website, there's a newsletter there, the manager tells you pretty much everything you need to know about what's going on in the airport. We have Coeur d'Alene Flyers from the social side and the Coeur d'Alene Airport Association. So there's resources for information available. You just have to avail yourself of. And I think that would, cover everybody's needs and would probably segue back into number 2, complaints management resolution system. I think it would probably drop complaints markedly.
Yeah.
And
More people know their communication.
good communication is going to foster good relations.
So the question I have is, I mean, should we keep it on the list? We're not keeping it on the list at this point. Do you feel it's dealt with?
I think we can remove it.
Does anybody have an objection to removing it? Okay, so number 3 is being removed.
The next one is 4, which was access airport facility and hangars. You know, based on just my attendance at these meetings and the update you gave. Like, you know, I think that one's being managed.
They're actually working on it. I had a discussion with Gaston about that, and he said they're actively working on making that happen right now. So I think that ball has been tossed over to that court.
Okay.
And I think we can just leave it up to them.
Does anybody have an objection to removing number 4, access airport facility and hangars? Okay, we're removing that one. Number 6, landing fee impacts on airport uses benefiting community. You know,
I
this
believe that thing is flowing. That's.
that baby's been brought in for landing.
I agree.
Bill,
Bill? Running the fee structure that the airport board discussed at last month's meeting.
Mhm.
Did go with the board, and they unanimously agreed with the board in the presentation. It is going up for a public meeting, and it will be, I believe, by the end of the month, it will be in effect.
okay,
Well, Phil, I thought that was kind of like rubber stamped through, because I saw Addison Pemberton in one of his flight planes out here, and he said he was never gonna go back here again, so.
the word got out.
Yeah,
It's a good conversation at Bert's birthday party.
yeah, good, good.
So,
Okay,
I think it's.
so we can take 6 off. Any objections to taking item 6 off the priorities list? Okay. And then 7 is 7 on the list is updates to airport board guidelines. I think, given the discussion here tonight and the vote, I would suggest we take that off unless. Agree. Yeah, I think we take that off. Any objections to that? No, okay. Now this one. 8 was always meant as a heading for everything that kind of falls under it, like other processes, like safety in the tower. It just didn't come out that way in the table, unfortunately. But like other processes affecting airport stakeholders is a heading under which things like safety and tower come. So let me just skip over that one and go to safety and tower, number 9. In light of some of the updates we've had and the progress made this year on providing a more continuous tower operation, do people feel this should remain on the list, or should we remove it?
I think it may emerge again as, you know, the tower study gets underway and you know, there's gonna be additional input from us at that time. But I think for right now, I think our desires are known as to what we want, but there's gonna be things that come out of the study and.
For this season, we're covered, so to speak.
seems like it, and that could always be relisted.
Right,
Yes.
Similar to Ames, we don't have a resolution, but.
right.
Okay, so on 9, I'm gonna say take it off. Does anybody object? And obviously, we can add it back in if next season or whatever is appropriate. 10 was fiscal and safety, part 139. This is, I'll admit, I didn't focus on this, but these are the part 139 regs, so I at least brought them to refresh my memory. And you know, once you get into these things, it's like opening Pandora's box, right? You can't just like fiddle with one and not expect there's some consequence on the other end. You have to think about it. I see Frank, you're going like, what did he mean by that? I mean, it's Pandora's box, because if you start fiddling with one and say, let's do that, there could be consequences you have to think through, right? All the way to what happens when they change that word, right? That's what I was getting at. So the question I have is fiscal and safety. What do we make of this? Do we keep it on?
I'm gonna vote that we keep it on.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, I think we're happy with the way that things are. We don't want to do anything that's gonna, you know, jeopardize our grants and our funding that we've got here. But I do think that there are things that for instance, the wildlife fence that goes around the airport.
Yeah.
You know, is it really a wildlife fence? Is it a security fence? You know, what does it mean with regard to the gates? What type of apparatus do we need on this airport to be safe and to maintain the abilities that it currently has and the ability to attract business here. But I do think that Part 139 needs to be revisited from time to time, and especially if funding for something new comes up related to Part 139, I would like us to understand what we're supporting. So Frank's got it.
Been a lot of conversation around Part 139. I've been part of this conversation. Going back several years, and the concern was, in the first place, what does Part 139 cost us? What is the benefit we get out of it? What I can do is Part 139 in and of itself is enhanced safety standards that apply to this airport that they would otherwise not have to practice, and that, it comes down to runway lighting and striping and the debris removal and inspection of the airport, snow plowing, and correct me where I'm wrong. And that's really what it does. And by having those enhanced safety standards, if we want to have any kind of commercial service in here, we meet the standards for the FAA to have. One of the biggest benefits, and correct me again if I'm wrong, Phil, is it puts us into a different category of airport, where there's a bigger pot of money and there's a smaller pool of airports. So when we go out there, we want to do these grant applications, maintenance on runway 624, construction of the new taxiway, excuse me. We're not down here in the great unlocked mass of general aviation airports competing for a smaller pool of money. We have really a better opportunity to get the financial treatment that we want. So even though we don't have 737s landing in here, we're able to go to the FAA and say, here, we've got a big project we'd like to do. It's much easier to get the money. And I think that's where we get the benefit out of it. I'm assuming at some point we will have some kind of commercial service in here. I don't know how soon that's going to happen. We're talking about a tower study. I'm sure that's one thing the FAA is going to want to understand. Is there going to be enhanced need for this tower going forward, which with commercial service you would have it. But being a fiscal kind of a guy, being an accountant, I kind of like the idea that, yeah, we need money. We're not sitting here fighting with Bonners Ferry, Sandpoint, St. Mary's, and other little airports. We're up there with the bigger boys on this thing, even though we're at the bottom tier of Part 139 airports. And I would be very reluctant to walk away from that, unless it could be demonstrated that it's costing us more than the benefit we get out of it. And I sincerely doubt that that's the case.
I think Tim had some.
Well, kind of tied into what I was saying about the tower. I think there's our ability to get a tower in here is going to be enhanced by having 139. If there's any direct link, Bill, with the requirement for a tower and being a part of 139 airport.
No, if we had commercial service, it would put more emphasis on it.
Right.
However, given the traffic and the mix of traffic and the growth we're having right now, I don't think you need commercial service to justify a tower.
No, I'm saying part 139. If we were to quit complying with part 139, like
That doesn't include passenger service.
Well, okay, it's all based on safety and having the 139 allows us, we're Class D. That allows us to have the aircraft with over 30 passenger seats, the charters, Allegiant was in with last year with a A320.
Yep.
We've had 737s in, 727. That's what our category allows us to do. Okay. The more traffic we have of that nature, that all goes into that tower study. Okay, so the 139 doesn't necessarily give us a hinge up on getting a tower.
I just don't know of any airport that has a tower that's not 139, I guess would be a better way for me to state.
It has to be able to.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Phelps Field has one by default. They used to be the international airport, so they built a new one.
Yeah, okay, that was.
So I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not suggesting at this point that we ever look at dumping Part 139. But my concern was that under the, it seemed to me that under the previous administration, that Part 139 was being used to justify a $6 million, maybe that's not the right number, snow removal equipment building, which I think was obscene, and a couple $1 million admin building to tear this one down. Those types of things, if Part 139 is being used as a justification for major expenditures, I believe that we need to be engaged in those conversations. That's what I believe.
And I would, excuse me, I would agree, although I think there's a certain amount of education that needs to take place before you make those assumptions. There are certain requirements under Part 139 that just because we're Class 4 doesn't exempt us from those requirements.
Yeah. Well, that's the dialogue that I think that we need to keep on the table. That's all I'm saying is, if we can keep talking about those things, we can keep them informed. We're not surprised by something that comes along that you know, kind of common sense would dictate that it's not right. So anyway, if that's what it appears to us, let's get those things resolved ahead of time and then get them off the table.
So look at, just, oh, I'm sorry, Joe.
Yeah, I have a comment. So Part 139, as you all know, is a very complex set of regulations, rules to follow, et cetera. I would recommend that we remove this from the list, but as projects come up and as things come up that might cause us to reflect on Part 39, we could revisit it at that.
That was one of my, view on it.
That okay? I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I think one other thing too, that we were trying to do initially was to attach a cost. It would be nice to know if we did not have Part 139, how much of the approximately $1.5 million a year to run this airport would that be reduced? You know, would it be reduced a significant amount, material amount, or perhaps not? And I think that was a question everybody had in the first place, because the cost estimates that I heard thrown around by people, some of them were fairly well. It costs $1 million a year to have Part 139. You mean, oh, we can get rid of that and it's $400,000 a year to run this airport? No. I think it's more incremental costs associated with it from a county standpoint that you might be able to say you've got the equivalent of 1 or 1/2 of a man count. I don't know. Yes, and Phil could better address that. I would say probably a lot of it is it's hard to associate solid cost with. Because what I've come up with from reading the rules, when I got the book from Stephen, which half of it was wildlife management, I threw that out. I had no interest in it, but I went through and looked at generally what it was saying. It was basically saying these are enhanced safety standards that the FAA is requiring if you want to have passenger traffic in here. And in applying those standards to this airport as it exists, it also enhances safety for you and everybody else. So it becomes a difficult question to answer. I'm sure I could smell a gas on it, we could pencil things out and make some assumptions and come up with a number. And whether it would be absolutely correct or not, I'm not really sure. Because I know you guys put this in when in 1998. 1998. So I mean, it certainly preceded the preceding management, Phil and Greg went for that for a particular reason. And I understand what Phil's saying when, it gives us opportunity to access monies that we otherwise might not be able to access. And that kind of got me keenly interested because I see this airport being needful as time goes on and things get busier. So I certainly don't want to see us put ourselves behind the eight ball, kneecap ourselves, as it were, trying to step over a buck to pick up the nickel by trying to get rid of Part 139.
So in light of that discussion, where do people come out about keeping it on the list or not?
Well, I had another discussion, kind of adds to what John is saying, and that I think everything's fine the way it is now, as far as our understanding of a Class 4 139 operation. And my trigger to discussing it any further would be, is there something that might come into play that would cause it to go from Class 4 to Class 3? And then we would need to look at that, because as I understand, Phil, there's a big difference in maybe, the difference between a wildlife fence and a security fence when you go from 4 to 3 and so on and so forth. So I think that it can actually be removed off the list for that reason only. And that if there were to be a fundamental change in the classification, that we need to re-engage ourselves.
Yeah, it'd come back to us.
Well,
I agree with that.
So does anybody object to taking it off? Yeah, go ahead.
If I could, when you look at the cost of 139 to the taxpayers, the operation of the airport. To look at both sides of it, and really understand 139, when we've had it for 25
25 years.
years now. I can't remember the old days. I think we also need to ask ourselves, what do we lose if we no longer have 139? This airport is, I got here in October '91. I can tell you, there's only a third of the stuff on that picture up behind you there was here in October '91. Now you look at that picture there, and that was in 17. You look at an aerial of this airport today. I retired in August of 2020. I just came back in February, and I'm going, well, where's all our lease lots? And there's the growth there has been phenomenal. And North Idaho's growing, the airport's growing to keep up, and 139 is helping this county keep pace with it, whether we have commercial service or not. Yeah. So you have to look at not just what it costs us, what do we lose if we don't have it?
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement, Bill, that it's gonna stay unless something causes us to re-examine it, so.
I have one more comment too, Bill, when you adopted this in 1998, do you remember what your airport operating budget was for 1999? I mean, I'm gonna take a guess and say $500,000.
No, no.
700?
No, heavens, no.
you'd have to characterize that in 2023 dollars.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is if they had part 139. They have compliance with part 139 under lower budgets. So even though the budget is increased, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's increased because of part 139.
No. So for now, if I could just put a pin in that, we are taking it off the list for now. No objections.
No.
The commercial service issue, I would suggest is kind of bypassed, apparently it's never come back. So I'm not sure whether we need it on or not. Does anybody have any?
Well, I think we should take it off, and if it comes
Yeah.
back,
Then
we'll
we revisit it. Any objections? to
We
taking it
will,
off?
it will be revisited.
No,
Yeah.
I have no objection, but I have a question for Bill on that. So recently, we've discussed the plan sort of was to keep the north side of 624 commercial and then the south side of GA. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Right, okay, so easy explanation for that. If you look at the map for the picture. 624 taxiway November, the southwest apron, taxiway F and G. Okay, that is the only certificated part of this airport for 139 operations. Okay. Everything below that from the southwest apron, Delta down, 220 and Alpha, those are not certificated for 139 operations. So basically, that's your commercial side and your GA side.
Okay.
We did that purposely 25 years ago when we started laying this out.
Next on the list there was runway 220, and it's on the list, I just can't remember the context of
Runway shortening,
runway shortening.
but I think that's gone away for now too.
Yeah,
Okay, so no objection removing that.
yeah, we're a great board. We'll get rid of it.
I know, like, since January.
All in one meeting.
So, but the last one's monster rules and standards, which that there's a bit of that bit there, I'm sure.
Well, I wouldn't call it mods, I would call it a review of the current rules and standards, because we might get into that and figure out that there's not much to be needs to be changed, and again, there may be some suggestions.
So in that regard, does anybody have an objection to leaving that on the list here, to be able to go off a review of monitoring standards?
I would suggest it be left on the list, but ultimately will be dealt with by, initially by subcommittee.
I was, stole my thunder, friend. I was gonna say, I said you stole my thunder. I was going to say, I think we should have a subcommittee for that to study and come back. This is a discussion item tonight, but I think what would be, anybody interested in being on that subcommittee, recognizing the DOC's guidance.
First, I'm gonna make a suggestion, and since we just discussed the size of subcommittees, 3, right? Okay, so an issue like that needs to be undertaken by those who actually use the airport. So I think you have to be careful putting folks that aren't familiar with airmen requirements and
I get your point. So what I'm trying to say here is, why don't we, this is for discussion tonight, not action.
Yeah.
So why don't we come back to the next meeting with
Yeah,
a
but let's,
recommendation?
so you're saying leave it there.
Chairman Cleary,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any prohibition having non-board members on that. As long as there's no.
There
more
isn't.
than 3
This is
board
one opinion of.
No, agree. I'm just putting it out there as a suggestion.
So.
Yeah, well, as long as they can understand how the rules and standards operate relative to users of the airport, that's all I'm saying.
So. We will come back, this will stay on the list. Next meeting, come back with, each of you reflect. Your own time about whether you would like to be on the subcommittee or not, and I think we can come back and get a subcommittee going at the next meeting as an action item. Is there anything else? I mean, we've got about 5 minutes here. We spent a lot of time taking off things from the list that we've covered. Is there anything else that people think we should add to the list that's not on there now? We can keep that open. This is not a.
Which one?
Is there anything else that you think should be on the list that it's not? Because right now, what's left on our list of priorities to deal with is review of rules and standards. You know, one thing that I think about is, you know, you had a 2019 master plan. So it's a fairly recent minting. But at the same time, that comes up again. It's not a static document, nor is the community in which the airport exists. And some thought about, you know, that I think we should add I don't know how to phrase it, but I think the master plan should be something we think about. And what, if anything, in it, we might want to start working on as a board to get our arms around, like, you know, is the community changing in some ways that we contemplated in this plan? Would we have any recommendations around that? So I would suggest putting that on as just kind of a topical item, because at some point in the board's existence, you're gonna need to get ready for another master plan.
Right, but those are done on a fairly regular schedule, correct?
Yeah,
So we will know when that comes up. We will be participants in it anyway.
I believe it's 2020,
Right.
6 or 8. I think.
Right. So that's just, I mean, I don't see any way we won't be involved.
So how often is that updated?
I think I just mentioned, it's like, it was 2019, I think it comes up again like, you know,
7 years.
2028.
Usually every 5 years, but it'll take 2 years to do it.
Exactly, and that's why, you know, like,
Yeah, it's a long.
the FAA, reading their verbiage, you know, says that you should start early in your next update, thinking about it. You're a person who deals with these kinds of plans and, right? And it's never too early to start thinking about what the next update is. Well, so, Phil.
So. FAA, basic rules on, you review it every 5 years. An update is typically 10 years or more. But this airport, since I got here, we've been asked we did the review, we were asked to update it earlier twice. Because of how much growth we have.
Right,
So on the average, we'll do them by every 7 8.
so that one I just, this is obviously just a discussion item. So, you know, I would
When it's
suggest. maybe
time
we-
when it's time to work on the master plan, we're gonna know it.
It's a
And there's
massive
gonna be plenty of
amount.
time for us to delve into it.
It's a huge project.
It's a huge project.
So there's no way we're not going to, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Gonna automatically-
If we were to take it as a board now and start taking part of our board meetings and coming through it, that we're not going to be very effective at that.
I think at minimum, those of you who have not read the master plan might want to become familiar with the parts of it and understand what's in it.
Yeah.
So when it comes time, you have some. basis
Absolutely.
of-
Well, I've read it many, many times.
Oh,
So
I'm not saying
it's a
you haven't.
roadmap.
I'm
And,
just
uh,
saying,
And that roadmap needs, you know, it reflects a moment in time for planning purposes. And, you know, society around the airport continues to change, so that's why I'm suggesting, you know, people should be reviewing this thing.
yes,
Whether we bring it up in every meeting, I don't know, and maybe it doesn't belong added to the list right now. But I think it's one of the foundation documents that if you're on the board, you need to like read it backwards and forwards.
absolutely.
Because it lays out a roadmap, that's where all this grant money is being lined up. To pave the next field.
Yeah.
Put up the next building, or whatever, you know, and so if you don't understand that, then you really can't understand. The vision for what the board's doing in the community, that's why I bring it up, maybe it's not. Beyond here. But I think each person could, one way of coming about it is each person could. After reading it numerous times, pick a chapter that they think, you know, piques their interest, and become the expert on that. And become the go-to person for this board with respect to details of that chapter. That's one way of thinking about it without even putting it on the list, like we just kind of divvy it up that way. And it might be too early, but I think that's, you know, one way of doing it. When I work in trial teams on certain issues, we break them down, and you're gonna be the expert on this, you'll be the expert on this, and you'll know it. And you're gonna be generalist and an expert on subject areas. So, you know, for now, I think we just leave it there. And no need to add it to the list. Is there anything else on the list that people feel should be on there that we're missing? Because now we're down to like one item, review lots and standards.
Well, with respect, coming back to current events, I think there needs to be some discussion around how we can accelerate. Development of lots for lease. We've got a pretty significant waiting list of people. Wanting to build hangars here. We've got people moving in here all the time. I do feel that in the last few years, the airport's really lagged on that. Of course, we had a pretty good inventory of lots. Up until last year, I think that we need to take a hard look. As a board as to what the options might be, airport management advisors to some more lots in the pipeline so we can start to satisfy some of the demand. I know I've had a conversation with Gaston about this, but I think it's a worthwhile subject for us to
So along
explore.
that line, if and I don't want to, maybe I miss people who want to discuss this down here, but maybe when we come back, because we're just discussing things, but
Mhm.
you know, perhaps people give some thought about a subcommittee for that. Or it doesn't even have to be that, one person if they want, one person subcommittee, but who would take it on and come back with some recommendations about just the kind of thing you're talking about for the board's consideration. Maybe we can take that up next meeting.
I was thinking more along the lines of querying airport management, and, you know, we know we've got this situation. We'll get a report from airport management, see what we can do with the system in that endeavor. For anybody here with an airplane, it's fairly obvious. You know what the problem is, we just don't have enough parking. And what might be some options, and I think by the next meeting, you know, perhaps Gaston would have some ideas to say, you know, here's. What direction I think we can go forward on this, and we're looking more at that, because it has not been on any of the agenda items.
I agree with Frank. I would like to have a brief presentation on what next board meeting on that exact subject. To include future acquisitions of land, how long that may take, what the process is to do that, and what the chances of getting it done. So if you wouldn't mind, Gaston, that would be.
To that point, though, we're not supposed to tell them what to do, I don't think. I don't, so someone help me.
Oh, your plate desk.
Yeah.
I don't think it's telling them what to do. I think that's just soliciting their input.
Yeah.
On
Okay.
a pressing need for the airport. We're allowed to bring up matters that impact the service. So it's not saying, yeah, you go forth and do this, it's just saying, yeah, and here's this problem. What do you think about it? And then engaging in a dialogue.
Okay.
Brian, I have a question.
No.
It's already in process. It's been discussed with the FAA. The fact that we brought out of property. That's brought some things to light at the airport here. And Seattle's aware of it, and what that does, we told them we're out of property, they kind of went, oh. Well, when Seattle found out about it, it raised the priority for us for development. So now we're playing shell game with them because they've got this CIP list out there of specifically what's gonna happen according to funding, and now they have to reshuffle it. With Gary, a lot of our construction projects are their priority. With Seattle Regional, now that we're out of development property, they're gonna raise that funding level in concern for us. So that's already in process. We don't know all the workings of it. We have two options for development currently on the ALP, which we're working on as we speak. And we're working with our Dura Engineering on an alternate hangar development. We just don't have anything to present to the board yet because none of it's official.
So does that actually cover it? And we just as things emerge, we would.
I think it's one of those things, the airport at every meeting could just provide an update. I don't think it has to go any further than that.
Right.
Okay.
So, Jim,
Mike had it.
sorry.
Yeah, Phil kind of answered the question for me, and that's the reason I asked about the difference between the 139 on the airport and the GA on the airport. Was I just had a simple question, what's left on the airport for GA right now in general? I know that area over by the shooting, the Seton Club was a potential area for GA development, but is there anything else?
That's been discussed with the FAA. They like the idea. We have a couple concepts. It's not in the ALP because we need to take a couple more steps with the FAA on that. Right now, the only thing we have that's on the ALP we can do soon, and we're trying to figure out the money on that. The road that goes in to D3 coming in the back.
Yeah.
That road, when we built it, it's actually designed at taxiway grade.
Kind of looks like that.
We're gonna we'll extend that out. It's only 25 feet wide. It's only category 1 hangar. But it's some kind of inventory. That's already approved on the ALP. Now we need to discuss funding to get that to happen. And we're looking at the gun club purchase, okay, over there between Ramsey and Airport Drive. How much they're gonna buy, okay, how much is gonna be left, and how much of it's practical to bring back into aviation before we actually sell it. We're at that critical point. Do we do this or do we sell it? If we sell it, we can take that money and maybe do infrastructure up north, but we have a property, there's a lot of things that have to fall in place. Within, playing the shuffle game with the FAA and everything's rated by priorities. Now that we're officially on developed property, I should say. That raised that, so the emphasis on doing that. The property on the east side of Airport Drive, bringing that back in is kind of gonna get raised priority wise, but we need to get it developed, we need to get it approved, we need to get it on the ALP so we can get it into their system to get the funding. So there's a lot of things have to happen, so it's not gonna happen tomorrow. The soonest thing we could do is to turn the road coming in D3, turn that into hangars. And that gives us a little inventory, not much.
Okay.
We're working on it.
If we did that, would we have to build to the same standards as the other hangars on the other taxiways on the west side or go to where there's, I don't know how much space there is between them, but you've got those box hangars. That consume a lot of space.
Years ago, the building department changes to the International Building Code and they wanted 30 feet from the lot line, which wasted We lost 8 hangars down D2, D1. Well, we've got some common sense back into it, and we're doing 15 feet, so instead of 60 between buildings and 30. I'd like to go to 10 and 10, but that's fights for another day.
But Phil, isn't that, see, when I did that on my hangar, I put mine closer and I had to put a double firewall there.
Oh, yeah, you can do a 0 lot line build if you can afford it, put in a 4 firewall.
Right.
But that's a building code thing, and
Yeah.
that's, I can't speak to that, they have the regulations, and that's just where it is.
Okay.
But we're trying to get things down to a reasonable, minimum.
So I think we've had a good discussion here. I'm gonna close out that item, if you don't object, and move to item 10, which is public comment. Do we have any public comment this evening? Good evening, sir.
For the record, my name is Jim Walsh, advocate here at the airport. I think you guys are making a mistake by tabling the decoupling issue. Myself, Keith Lang, put a lot of time in on what's going on with the decoupling. Did presentations, tried to get the craft management involved to push back on it, which was the issue. So I feel that it's been, I know it's been pushed back for 28 now. And the FAA has backed off somewhat on how much asphalt and concrete they want to remove. But I think in this 5-year period, there's still opportunity and a window for us, new management, to react. And maybe some FAA guys will be retiring in the next 5 years. Things like that, where we can be prepared to act on it to make it go away. Or present different options than removing concrete. So I don't think you guys can take it off your list. I think it should be an active volcano ready to go when need be. That's my opinion. I don't want to.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Nope. Let me move to adjournment. I move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anybody want to stay here?
Okay.
Ayes have it. We're adjourned. Thank you.